Um, hey guys, so it's Arianes here, and sorry, weird camera angle. I just want to do a few book recommendations, books I found good, and books I have recently read, and two books that I'm going to read in the future. Okay, so first book is this book is called The Diamond of Drury Lane. I picked it up at Waterstones, I believe, in London. It's by Julia Golding. It's about this girl called Cat Royal. And so basically what happens is she's an orphan, and she's adopted by the manager of a theater, and she kind of lives in the theater basically. And then there is kind of that she finds out that there's this jewel that's being hidden in the theater. And she has to promise not to tell anyone that there is, because then they'll try to find it and break in and stuff. It is a really good book. It's, I think, in the 19th or 18th century, so 1700s, 1800s. She's not your typical English girl. She's a bit adventurous. She can stand her ground, and she's a really headstrong character. And it's actually a series of, I believe, 6. And I'm actually asking for the second book whenever I can get it, and I really recommend it. So it's called The Diamond of Drury Lane by Julia Golding. Okay. Next book, and this is the book I've most recently read. It's called Fangirl. It's by Rainbow Rowell, and I believe that's her real name. I don't know. So basically, Fangirl is about the main girl is called Kath, and she has a identical twin. The identical twin's name is Ren, and so what happens is they both go to college. They don't room together, but so Ren is kind of this party, you only live life once girl. While Ren just decides to, Kath just decides to stick to what she knows, and she writes fan fiction on Simon Snow and Baz, I believe. Yeah, and so there are also some excerpts from the book there, and also she reads some of her fan fiction from it. I haven't read the Simon Snow series, though I'm kind of intrigued, because even if you haven't read it, you don't have to know it to understand the book, because it's really just like a little thing to show that she really loves the books and the movies, and so she writes fan fiction for it. Then it's also kind of how she endures her fiction writing class and how she has difficulty with that. And then it's also how, because she's a bit more reserved, and how she's a bit more not so open-minded to new things, it's a lot about her first love, and how her kind of relationship grows with people that she's only met for a few months. I do not think there's a sequel, but this is absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed this book, and I could barely put it down because it was so intriguing. And for a bookworm like me, it really shows how it really kind of takes the spirit of what we are, how we love the things we read and the things we learn from them, and also how we kind of take that world into our own imagination, and how we kind of make it a part where we're comfortable. So again, Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. Here. Okay. Now, next book, which my friend, I gave it to her, and she finished it in 2 days while I read it for a week, is called Tell Me Three Things. It's by Julie Buxbaum, I believe is how you pronounce it. So basically what happens is there's this girl, I can't remember her name, I read it a few months ago. Okay, so her name's Jessie, sorry, I forgot. Her name's Jessie, and she, her parents were divorced, and then her mother died, I believe, just 2 years ago. And what she does is she's still very sad about how her mother died, and she doesn't really connect that much with her father. And so her father has just married another woman through online dating, and the other woman also has a son, and so she and her dad go to move in with this woman who he marries, and she doesn't completely agree with the idea of them having a marriage because also the other woman, she's divorced. And so what happens, that's just kind of her background. What happens is basically they move to an LA prep, to super sophisticated, super fancy and super expensive school that she attends, which I believe is called Westwood High School. It's in Los Angeles in the United States. And so what's happening mainly is she gets first an email from this person whose email is like I think somebodynobody@gmail.com. And so he confirms that he's a guy, well, a male, is that he sees her on the first day and he immediately wants to talk to her, but he doesn't know how to with person to person. So what he does is he finds her email address through someone. It doesn't explain that too well, I don't think. And then it's about how he's kind of talking to her, and his father, I believe, also died. And then it's kind of how she survives these mean girls at the Westwood High. Then how also she becomes friends with her gay stepbrother. And then it's also about like her high school kind of. There isn't really much of adventure, it's just kind of a romance. And it's called Tell Me Three Things because what they do is she says, tell me three things, and then what he writes is he writes one, then writes something about himself that she probably didn't know, and then he writes three things like that. And kind of, it's about how when she's feeling really down, she kind of confides in this person, even though she doesn't even know if he's real, and he could be a prank or he could be lying to her. And then it's in the end how she's kind of fallen in love with him, I think, or she really likes him. And so what happens is she and they arrange to meet up somewhere. I won't say, because it's cute. And kind of she finds out who he is. And that's really breakthrough for her because she doesn't know that she doesn't think that she's ready to actually meet him in person and lose that thing that they had when they were just emailing. And actually my friend, when she was in the middle of the book on the first day, I asked her who she thought it was after she'd met most of the characters, and then she said she said that she thought it would be better if it kind of stayed like anonymous, but because it was this kind of sweet thing they had, and they didn't have to feel like they were being forced by someone to show them who they were. They felt like they could confide in each other. So it's a romance, realistic fiction, so not in another world. And yeah, so it's called Tell Me Three Things by Julie Buxbaum, and here you go. And it's a New York Times bestseller, apparently. Okay, now, this is a book I read. I got it at Hugendubel a few months, maybe half a year ago. It's called The Paris Secret by Karen Swan. It's also a Sunday Times bestseller, if you know the newspaper. And what's it about is, so this apartment, and this is actually based on a true story. So basically the true story is that in Paris, there's an apartment found where somebody tries to break in and to this apartment, and then they find out that it's been locked in, and there are a massive amount of paintings. So then they notify the people who own it, and apparently it's been locked and closed, and nobody's been in there for 70 years, I believe, since World War II. And so what happens then is the family who owns it, because their parents or great-grandparents died and left it to them with their will, they didn't really know about the apartment first. And so then in the story, it's about how in the apartment, the family calls an art agency, and an art agent named Flora Sykes, that's the main character, she's female, and she's an adult, and so what her job is she and her boss have to try and find all the information they can about these paintings and to investigate how they got there, how they came into the family's possession, maybe what they're worth to auction off, and then really there's a missing link. There's a missing link between, so they could track it down, the paintings down to one person who smuggled paintings in the World War II. And they can't seem to find the relation between, because there's no evidence, there's no proof, there's no documentation of this happening since that man and the family that got it. So then what happens is they have to try and find the missing link to it. It's a really big part of the story. It's a mystery, really. It's a mystery and a romance in realistic fiction. And so then kind of there's the son of the people who contacted her, her agency, and so they have a son and a daughter, and the son, whose name is Xavier, kind of has an interesting relationship with Flora. So what happens is kind of they're fighting a bit, he's a bit rude to her, but then he gets a bit jealous when he sees her with another man, and then kind of the relationship changes a bit positively, and it becomes kind of a bit of a romantic relationship, but there's a lot of tension because she's working for the family and she doesn't think it's right. Yeah, and then it's about how she moves between London and Paris, how they have to deal with the press about finding this apartment and finding the missing link, and of course the romance between Flora and Xavier. They don't know if this missing link is going to help the family or if it might destroy it with secrets. Yeah, so it's called The Paris Secret by Karen Swan and is also a Sunday Times bestseller. Here you go. Okay, now those are all the books I've recently read, I believe. The book I'm currently reading is called Throne of Glass. It's by Sarah J. Maas and is a #1 New York Times bestselling author. So I don't know if this book is bestselling for New York Times, but I believe Sarah J. Maas is. So it's called Throne of Glass, and it's in, the series is called Sensational, and it's a 5-book series, and then there's also a novella as a prequel. So it's written in third person, so it's not, but it's mainly following her actions, and the main character's name is Selena Sardathine. She's a woman who has, so it's in this fantasy world called Aurelia, I believe. There's a map in the beginning to help you guide so that you don't get too confused. I'm pretty confused right now with all the places, but it's becoming clearer as you read the book. And what's happening is she is an assassin. She is like this country's greatest assassin there is, but a lot of people don't actually know that it's a young woman, that she's young, and second of all, that she's a woman. So they believe that it's like a more experienced man, because they didn't believe that women could do so much as men could back then. Because it's kind of older times, like maybe 17th, or even maybe even the 17th century, I believe. It doesn't say year dates in here. And what happens is because she's caught doing on a job, and then she gets caught, she gets sent to these mines where she has to work collecting salt underground, And then the Prince of Adarlan, which is the country which they're in, the king's having a competition to see who is his best champion. And so that person will be their right-hand man or woman to fight for the king and to help him in any kind of difficult matters where fighting or conflict or blood or like murder is involved. Selena Sardathine is chosen by the prince. He sponsors her. So basically all the people in the parliament and the royal family are choosing someone to sponsor as their champion. And then of course they're betting on who will win. So she's up against a lot of people. I think she's up against 23 different men. They're all men. And because they don't want to ruin her image as Selena Sardathine, instead of it being, her being the Adarlan's greatest assassin. And so what they do is they disguise her as Lillian Gandovier, I believe. And she says she's from kind of this fish market area, described kind of like Denmark, I believe, and Sweden and Norway, I think. And so she says she's a jewel thief because they want to keep her identity a secret, yeah. And so it's about how if she live or dies in this competition, I think she's going to live since there are 4 more books in the series. And then it's about how if she wins the competition or if she doesn't and she somehow convinces somebody to help her or something. And basically the contract with the prince and the king is if she does help the king and become his champion and wins the competition, and she if she does become his champion, she will fight for him for 3 years, I believe, and then instead of going back to the mines where she's supposed to go, they're actually going to let her become free, and they're not going to really have any trouble with her. They say you can never trust the government, really. I don't think so much. So especially in like books like these, they're described as crooked politicians. So. Well, and so then it's about kind of how she realizes that the only thing that's holding her back is about what's holding her back. And then actually it's because she's described as that she has a heart of ice and a will of steel. It's kind of also about how if her heart will kind of soften because of the kindness and the generosity and a bit of the romance of the men around her and the people at the court and the friends she makes, kind of if she'll change to become a better person, but still values her skills and still using her skills for the king or not. I don't know. I'm in the middle of the competition right now, so 2 guys have just been eliminated. And so it's really about her journey of becoming or not becoming a different person and realizing that she's not doing this because she wants to, because Adarlan hasn't done so many good things. They've invaded a lot of kingdoms, a lot of countries. They've been really bad, kind of. They've ambushed a lot of countries. And cities, and they've killed a lot of people. But then she realized that the only reason she's doing this is, one, because she believes that she's doing something that she loves, which is, in this case, apparently killing people. And also that this is pretty much her only way to freedom. So she has to fight through this and go to the best way that she can to become free. So that's the book I'm currently reading. I believe I am on page 127. I believe I'm on like chapter 14, I think. Okay, so these other 2 books I recently got this last weekend, I believe, also at Hugendubel. Yeah, no, I didn't get them at Hugendubel. I got them at Thalia, I think. So I got this book. It's called Wonder. It's by R.J. Palacio, I think. And the subtitle is "When You Can't Blend In When You Were Born to Stand Out." I haven't read it. It's, I think, about a boy named August. And it's kind of about, I read a description about it, and it's about kind of how kids at school are a bit scared of him, and they call him a freak, and they kind of bully him a bit because he looks different than a normal boy or a normal child. And so it's, I've had it recommended to me several times because I've read The Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which is about a boy who tries to solve a mystery, well, two mysteries actually, and he's autistic. But so I've heard that the authors are very similar, and it's kind of a similar topic about how it's about kind of children or people who aren't what we would call normal. And how they kind of have to cope with society changing the ways that they act towards the people because they're a bit different. And most of the time, the society doesn't think, well, we also, in the real world, this happens, that we don't think of them as good. Changes that they're that different is so good. But, I mean, some people try to, I think, some people are going to try to help him, but I think it's really about how he tries to make the situation work for him. Make him be okay with his life. Like, most of the time. Not all the time. It's hard to be happy all the time, I can tell as well. And, yeah. So I got that book. And then I also got this book called Heartless, which one of my friends, the one who read Tell Me Three Things, she's reading as well, and it's called Heartless by Marissa Mayer, and the subtitle is "Before She Was the Queen of Hearts, She Was Just a Girl Who Wanted to Fall in Love." And so it's about, I think my friend told me that it's about the Queen of Hearts before she becomes the Queen of Hearts, and it's Marissa Mayer's view and imagination of how the Queen of Hearts became the Queen of Hearts, and how she, when she was just a girl in Wonderland, she wanted to fall in love. And my friend told me there are a lot of excerpts from The Raven, which is a poem we learned about in school recently in English class, and how yeah, it was published in 2016, so it's quite recent. And Marissa Mayer is actually a New York Times best-selling author. She's a best-selling author of New York Times because of the Lunar Chronicles. Yeah, that's the book she got a best-selling author for. And so I really can't wait to read these books, and I really enjoy books that I've already read, and most of them I believe are, no, I think all of them actually are under 10 euros or $10, or I think, I don't know how much in Canadian dollars or Australian dollars, sorry, but I believe they're under like maybe $13 US dollars and 10 euros, definitely, they're under 10 euros each, if you're getting them kind of from the same areas where I am in Europe. So, Heartless by Marissa Mayer, and thank you very much for watching. Have a good night or day wherever you are, and I hope you, if you're a bookworm yourself, you read amazing books. So, bye.